Bulletproof coffee is derived from a recipe from Tibet called yak butter tea, which, as the name suggests, consists of yak butter, tea, salt, and water that's churned into a frothy hot beverage. And this is somewhat considered the Tibetan national beverage and a daily staple throughout the region. This yak butter tea was brought over to the U.S. a number of years ago and then eventually converted to a coffee-based beverage. No matter where you go on the internet, there are always going to be three primary ingredients to bulletproof coffee. First is obviously coffee. The second is a good unsalted butter, preferably organic grass-fed butter. And the third ingredient, which is not as widely known, are medium chain triglycerides or MCT oil.
You take 1 cup of black coffee, add 1 to 2 tablespoons of unsalted grass-fed butter, and 1 to 2 tablespoons of MCT oil. Blend until frothy. MCT stands for medium chain triglycerides, and it's basically a processed mixture of fats that naturally occur in coconut and palm kernel oils. MCT oil is more rapidly digested and metabolized than other types of fats, so a lot of studies have touted it as a weight loss supplement. It increases your body's ability to burn energy while decreasing its fat storage. It's a key component of buttered coffee, but the people who swear by it also say that the kind of butter you use is equally as important. It must be unsalted and it must be grass-fed. Just organic is not enough. Same goes for the coffee. Ideally, it should be organic, single origin beans. Obviously.
Some are saying that it really helps with some weight loss, but others are saying it really boosts their energy levels, just keeping the caffeine around in their bodies a little bit longer.
Okay, and does it boost energy levels?
Theoretically, it could.
Okay.
The fat that you're taking in saturated fat, so that can certainly keep the caffeine from being digested, and so it could stay a little bit longer in your system.
And I know there are good fats. I mean, is this any better than eating an avocado in your salad?
It's a bit different. There's been certainly studies over the last few decades that have really shown how saturated fats weren't all that good. However, those studies have really started to turn around. Really, the big question is how much is too much?
Yeah. Well, to a lot of people, it is. In addition to curbing hunger and potentially aiding in weight loss, people also say it helps with energy and focus, gives greater mental clarity, and sustains your coffee buzz for longer, up to 6 hours, while eliminating the post-caffeine crash. It also curbs the jittery side effects and the acid stomach feeling that you get from drinking straight coffee. And since it's technically served frothed, a lot of people say it tastes just kind of like a fattier latte, which doesn't actually sound all that bad. Now, depending on
Now, current evidence does show that saturated fat intake is not actually a risk factor for heart disease when consumed in normal quantities. Keep in mind that all of the large population studies available looked at people using normal amounts. That is, everyday ordinary amounts like adding butter on toast or with scrambled eggs. Now, people were never pouring large amounts of saturated fat into their coffee. They were simply eating it along with other foods. Now, for those who subscribe to the ancestral nutrition approach, humans did not evolve eating or drinking such massive amounts of saturated fat. We were eating it as part of meals, not as the meal. There are plenty of nutrients that are healthy when consumed in reasonable amounts, but when people start mega dosing them and eating those nutrients in isolation, it can cause serious problems. Fructose is the really obvious example. Now, it's good when found in nutritious, fibrous, whole fruit, okay? But it's a disaster when consumed in concentrated amounts from refined sugar like you'd get in soft drinks. It's entirely possible that saturated fat is the same. Fine in reasonable amounts, but harmful when we start eating unnaturally large concentrated doses that are just way outside of our evolutionary norms. Number 2, saturated fat aside, there is another glaring problem with consuming large quantities of butter, and that is that it does not contain what's called milk fat globule membrane, or MFGM. MFGM is a protective membrane that encloses the fatty acids found in high-fat dairy products, such as cream, which in turn seems to reduce the cholesterol-raising effects of its fatty acids. Now, butter is just cream that has been churned, and the churning process destroys much of this membrane. The result is that butter can increase the amount of LDL particles in your bloodstream, which are a strong predictor of heart disease. In case you're still not convinced, many people's heart health markers are spiking dramatically when they start to drink bulletproof coffee. There have been a lot of reports from health professionals, even those that advocate a low-carb, high-fat or paleo approach, that they've had patients with drastically elevated cholesterol levels after drinking Bulletproof coffee. Keep in mind that these changes go way beyond total and LDL cholesterol, which are not the most accurate as risk factors. We're seeing increases in ApoB and LDL particle number, which are much stronger and more accurate risk factors. Now, although these numbers are still just risk factors, given how strong their predictive value is for heart disease, I think this is a legitimate concern. Fortunately, case studies indicate that in those who do experience those large spikes in cholesterol levels, when they stop drinking Bulletproof coffee, the levels come down quite quickly.